In the whole history of how we handle data, there are a few moments that are just absolute game changers, catastrophic turning points. And today, we're going to break down one of the biggest, the Equifax data breach from 2017. This is the story of how one single preventable mistake completely spiraled into a national crisis. So let's get into it.
First, to really get the scale of this, you have to start with this number, 147 million. Just let that sink in. That's almost half the entire population of the US. And we're not just talking about leaked passwords here. No, we're talking about the absolute keys to your financial kingdom: social security numbers, birthdays, home addresses. This wasn't just another data breach. It was a deep, personal violation of security on a scale we had just never seen before.
So the big question is, how? How does a company whose entire business is built on trust and safeguarding our most sensitive information just leave the front door wide open? Well, the answer is kind of shocking in how simple and preventable it really was.
Okay, so the weak link was a piece of software called Apache Struts. Now, you've probably never heard of it, and that's okay. But think of it like the digital plumbing. It's a framework that tons of major websites and apps are built on. It's everywhere. And that's what makes it so useful, but also, if a flaw is found, it makes it incredibly dangerous.
This timeline, right here, this is where the story gets really frustrating. It just lays the whole failure bare. See, in March of 2017, the good guys find a vulnerability, and a patch, a fix, is released immediately. But over at Equifax, that patch was never applied. So come May, hackers found that unlocked door and just walked right in. And here's the craziest part. Nobody at Equifax even noticed until July. For weeks, data was just pouring out of their systems, and they were completely in the dark.
Now, it's really tempting to blame this whole mess on that one missed patch. But that's not the whole story. Not even close. What investigators found was that the unpatched software was really just a symptom of a much deeper, more systemic problem. It pointed to a corporate culture where cybersecurity just wasn't a top priority. It was a massive failure of what the pros call database hygiene.
And this table just shows you how wide that gap really was. You've got the security basics on the left, what everyone should be doing on the right, and then there's Equifax in the middle. Best practice says you segment your networks, right? So if a hacker gets in one door, they're trapped in that one room. Equifax had a flat network, meaning once the hackers were in, they could go literally anywhere they wanted. Best practice says you encrypt data. Equifax's encryption was weak, if it was there at all. Best practice is real-time detection. Equifax had, well, poor monitoring. So yeah, the unlocked door was bad, but it was these internal failures that turned a break-in into an absolute catastrophe.
When you have an institutional failure on this level, you just know the consequences are going to be huge. And when that reckoning finally came for Equifax, it was massive. We're talking about a price tag measured not just in data, but in billions of dollars and a whole lot of careers. $700 million. That was the ballpark cost just to settle with the FTC, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and pretty much every single state. But honestly, even a number that huge is really just the tip of the iceberg.
The total fallout was just staggering. You have the 147 million people whose data was now out there forever. You had the huge fines, then came the leadership exodus. The CEO resigned, the board got a major shakeup. But maybe more importantly, this event sent a shockwave through the entire industry. It forced everyone to take a long, hard look at how they were handling data, and it cemented Equifax's name in the Hall of Shame of totally preventable breaches.
If there's any silver lining to a disaster of this size, it has to be the lessons learned. The Equifax breach basically wrote the new rulebook for data security, and these rules are now pretty much considered non-negotiable.
And they basically form a modern security protocol. Number 1, automate your patches. Don't leave a critical security fix to some manual to-do list that someone can just forget. 2, encrypt your sensitive data, period. It's like putting a deadbolt on your most valuable stuff. 3, segment your systems. Contain the damage so one breach doesn't give a hacker the keys to the entire kingdom. 4, you have to have real-time breach detection so you know the instant an intruder gets in, not weeks later. And finally, and this is the big one, you have to change the culture. You have to treat public trust as your single most important asset.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? In our digital world, we hand over our most private information, and we just trust that these institutions will protect it. That trust demands constant, relentless vigilance on their part. It's not just a tech issue, it's a social contract.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty tough question to think about. Look, the Equifax breach wasn't the first major data disaster, and it sure as heck won't be the last. In a world of constant digital threats, it really forces every single one of us to ask, who is actually standing guard over our data? And more importantly, are they really doing enough?